So, Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso congratulates Russian president on his win. As the Russian president was re-elected as president for the first time in Russia, he received many congratulations by many presidents in the world. And that includes Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, Abdourahmane Chani of Niger, as well as Assimi Goïta of Mali. Ibrahim Traoré, Abdourahmane Chani, and Assimi Goïta. What do they have in common? 3 African presidents congratulating Russian president. They were all colonized by France many years ago, were freed in the 1960s, where they received independence, or what they call independence. Even though many experts believe that France still controls the economy of these countries, they receive independence. What do they have in common? Number 2, they all toppled their presidents lately. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger toppled their president. Why did they do that? They did it because they felt like even though they were supposedly free and independent countries, these presidents were working for interests of Western nations. And in this specific instance, for France, an ex-colonizer, was still controlling the economies of these countries. And that was one of the main reasons these people felt they need to topple the president. Some experts believe after colonization, Africa was not really free. Africa was still being controlled, but the European installed in every African country a president that represented their interests. So as long as the president of Africa represents interests of the colonizers, he was good to be, even though he was not nice to his own people. But as soon as a president in Africa was trying to actually work for the interests of the people of Africa, most of the time you see a coup d'etat, or mysteriously he gets. So in this instance, we have Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Here on the map, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger all come together to congratulate Vladimir Putin on his win. Like I said earlier, these countries have kicked out French people out of their territory. France used to have bases in all of these countries. But unfortunately, in 2020, Mali kicked them out. In 2022, Burkina Faso followed suit. And 2023, Niger did the same. So now the French people have been kicked out of these countries of Africa. And many European and Western nations are not very happy about that. Obviously, everybody's looking out of their brothers or their friends. As soon as this country kicked out France out of their territory, they turned to Russia for support. And Russia seemed to be supporting these African nations. Let me just remind you here, Russia was at war with Ukraine. And Ukraine was being supported by Europeans. And France was still trying to keep its fingerprints in Africa. So that goes without saying. What would have been the best way for these African countries to receive support if they're pushing away France? Would it be turning to another European nation? Absolutely not. That's why they turned to Russia. And now they are supporting Vladimir Putin in his politics and say congratulations for being re-elected. Number 2, the European Union pushes ahead with a plan to buy weapons for Ukraine with frozen Russian assets profit. Okay, how is that possible? The European Union wants to buy ammunition and weapons for Ukraine using Russian money that was confiscated in Europe. Why do they need to do that? Because America was supposed to send money to Ukraine lately. But that plan has not worked accordingly. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell got a green light for the plan for the most of bloc foreign minister this week. The move comes as Ukraine runs dangerously low in munition and US efforts to get new funds for weapons are stalled in Congress. So America used to send weapons to Ukraine very easily, no difficulties, when the war started. But very lately, they've been very apprehensive about it, very divided. Some say send weapons, some say we don't need to do that anymore. And now the Europeans say because the Americans cannot send weapons right now, they're fighting with each other on whether to send or not. Let us just take, all the assets that we got from Russia that was being banked in Europe. Let's take the profit from those assets and send it to Ukraine. So in other words, we're taking the money that belongs to Russia, that is confiscated here in Europe, and we're using some of that money to send to Ukraine so Ukraine can fight Russia. Is that a provocation? Big question. The 27 national European Union is holding about $200 billion of Russian assets. Most of it is frozen in Belgium in retaliation against Moscow's war against Ukraine. So because Moscow went to war against Ukraine, the Europeans say we're going to keep your assets here. We're going to confiscate 200 billion euros that belongs to you. And now we're going to take the interest that's about $3 billion a year and send it to Ukraine to fight you. The Russians will not be very happy about this. The amount of money, $3 billion a year, is not extraordinary, but it's not negligible. It's a lot of money for Russia. So Joseph Borrell is a figure that some of you know, some don't maybe. He made a speech a while back saying that Europe was a garden while the rest of the world was a jungle. Do you remember?
Yes, Europe is a garden. We have built a garden. Everything works. It's the best combination of political freedom, economic prosperity, and social cohesion that the humankind has been able to build. There's three things together. And here Bruges is maybe the good representation of beautiful things, intellectual life, well-being. The rest of the world, and you know very well, Federica, is not exactly a garden. The rest of the world, most of the rest of the world is a jungle. And the jungle could invade the garden. And the gardeners should take care of it.
Europe was a garden. Europe is a garden. It's a beautiful garden. We take care of it. We maintain it. It flourishes. The rest of the world is the jungle. So we need to build walls to prevent the jungle from growing into Europe. I don't know what you understand from that, but yeah. So Europe has to build walls to prevent the jungle from coming into Europe. Everything is Europe-centric, according to Joseph Borrell. And Joseph Borrell is still the same guy that said Africans in Mali don't understand the thing about Putin. They're not clever enough because Malians were clapping for Putin. They were happy about Putin. They say they don't know anything about Putin. They're not very educated.
I've seen in the TV screens these African young people on the streets of Bamako with billboards saying, Putin, thanks, you have saved the Donbass, and now you will save us. It's really shocking. Well, you can consider these people don't know where the Donbass is. Maybe they don't even know who is Putin.
He said Malians are not intelligent enough to understand Putin. Putin is playing with them. They have no, cerebral capacity. That's Joseph Borrell for you. He's a big decision maker in the European Union. So again, fellas, this is what's happening in the world. Again, the International Olympic Committee in Paris say that they will not accept Russian athletes.
AINs will not participate in the parade of delegations teams during the opening ceremony, since they are individual athletes. But an opportunity will be provided to them to experience the event.
What they're going to do is they're going to accept Russian athletes provided they do not represent the flag of Russia. You can be an athlete from Russia, compete at the Olympics in France, but do not represent the Russian flag. So you're going to be a neutral competitor. I don't know. My question is, why does geopolitical things play into sport? Shouldn't these two be completely different entities? I mean, yes, Russia has issues with Ukraine, but is that the reason why Russian competitors should not represent the flag? Because I understand as a competitor, you want to win, but you don't just want to win. You also want to have a level of pride for your people, your nation. People win for their nation. I mean, if the problem is Putin the Russian flag? I don't think so. If you want to punish Vladimir Putin because you say his politics is bad, do you need to punish Russia as a flag? I don't know. But in the same hand, they say the Israelis can come, they can compete, no problem. I mean, the Russians cannot compete. They have to have a neutral flag, no Russian flag. But Israelis can go with the Israeli flag. They ruled out the idea that Israeli athletes taking part as neutral in Paris because there was a growing criticism over Israel's military campaign against Gaza. So Russia is doing things in Ukraine. Russian athletes cannot go compete with Russian flags. Israel is doing things in Gaza. Israel athletes can go compete with the Israel flag. Shouldn't we think a little bit about that? I mean, I don't know. They say things are very clear. Unlike Russian Olympic Committee, Israel has done nothing to violate Olympic Charter. Anyway, so again, fellas, Russian president has been congratulated by African presidents who are clearly turning to Russia for support, for freedom. They need everybody needs a level of support to get to their freedom. We have the European Union that take money from Russia, money from Russian assets to sponsor Ukraine to its war. And my question again, this is not the first time Europeans freeze other people's money. They've done it to Venezuela. They've done it to Iran. Why do you send your asset to Europe? That's my question. If they're going to freeze it anyway, why can't you keep your own stuff? How reliable are Europeans? I'm talking about those Europeans the elite. If they freeze other people's things because they don't get along. I mean, you may not get along with somebody and not freeze their asset, because that's honesty too. I'm honest enough, we don't get along, but I got your money. Here's your money, take it back. How about that? That's a good question. Why do you have to make all these Russians suffer the consequences that you should reserve for Vladimir Putin, an individual? I mean, Putin is the person that makes the decisions. All platforms say Putin is a dictator, so he makes decisions himself. If he makes decisions himself, why do athletes have to suffer not to represent their flags? I know what it means, having your flag around your shoulder when you win big in sport. Why force me to be a neutral, a countryless person to compete? Is that fair on me? I don't know. Let me know how you feel about this, fellas. Joseph Borrell, again, is that guy that said Europe is a garden and the rest of the world is a jungle. God bless.